Ladies and gentlemen, this is Hypnovision Media, and I am your host, Nicholas. Do you have IMAX learning vision? You are a pattern recognition machine. It's in our DNA, and it's like a kaleidoscope of information, and that is the topic of today: mental photography. The definition of mental photography is a technique that claims to allow individuals to absorb information at remarkable speeds. It involves creating vivid mental images from text, tapping into the verbal and visual spatial representational systems. For example, average reading speed. Typically, people read at a pace of around 250 words per minute. But mental photography speed, here's where it gets a little intriguing. Mental photography begins at an astounding 25,000 words per minute. During training, participants are tested to recall at least 52,000 words per minute. Proficient mental photographers, these are skilled practitioners that can demonstrate an eye-whopping 600,000 words per minute with an impressive 90% recall. And all of this while simply turning pages. The impact of mental photography is 100 times faster than traditional reading. Imagine absorbing such information at lightning speeds. While the claim of 100% retention might be dubious, mental photography does enhance the experience of reading. It opens pathways to parts of the brain with fantastic abilities, acting as a conduit of universal energy. I find that really interesting because when you look at the learning system and how it's transformed with this quote-unquote universal format across many states, and then how that's had a lot of influence on our education from a foundation level. And that has led me to do some research, and I came across what is called rote learning. And the definition of rote learning involves memorizing subject content through repetition. It often includes memorizing dates, facts, and formulas. The fundamental knowledge younger age groups use for rote learning is to establish a solid foundation of knowledge. For example, children learn to count through practice. Math and sciences, older students use rote memory to learn mathematical equations and chemical formulas. The downsides: lack of understanding. Rote learning does not encourage deep understanding. It's more about memorization. And it has a limited application. It's less effective for complex problem solving and critical thinking. So that right there really underscores our education system, because as long as we can repeat what is in the book, we can get a passing grade, regardless if we even understand what it is that we're being taught, how to apply it, and how it works. But the photographic memory is more of a first-person experience. And when I start thinking about you are a pattern recognition machine, just look at nature. All the what we would call wildlife has a way of blending in. Snakes have patterns, frogs have patterns, cats have patterns, and so on and so on. So every thing on this planet has patterns within it. There are patterns everywhere, and it's in our DNA. So this is where I'm bringing together a bunch of different life experiences in this moment, because this makes me think of meditation practice and visualization, going within and understanding what is within yourself. Now, I've done a lot of journaling over the past year, and I ask myself questions, and I really focus on those questions, and I go into a meditation, and It takes practice. It really does. It takes a lot of practice. You have to learn to quiet your mind because it can become really active. I call it active imagination, or your imagination becomes overactive, and you find yourself trying to force yourself to sit down and be still, but your mind is fully engaged in hyperdrive and you just want to go, go, go. But back to the education system for just a minute. When we are we're being bombarded by outside forces constantly. Be here, be there, think this, think that, don't say this, don't do that. We are constantly under some sort of ongoing bombardment to the point that we rarely take time for ourselves anymore. And we have this self-sacrificing mentality that has been what this is all about. The rote memory learning is through memorization without the emotional inspiration or emotional feelings that go with what it is you're learning. And I'll use an example. If you were to close your eyes and create a mental image of the perfect temperature outside, the sunlight is just right. You walk outside and take a deep breath, and you feel the warmth of the sun. You're relaxed, you're happy, you crack a smile. There is a mental image and a feeling that is attached with that moment. And you can remember that anytime you want and feel that same feeling of the sunlight hitting your face. While you may not be in a sunny location, that memory has a real feeling attached to it. And oftentimes we can be drilled like a drill sergeant into thinking certain thought patterns that have a void of emotion. They are basically cold patterns. This would be considered in the tarot world or some of the esoteric worlds as the dark side of the moon, right? Or what's in the shadow work, or the occulted, things that are hidden in plain sight. It's really not that scary once you really understand things on a much deeper level, like below the surface. There's a whole nother world, and that is in the imagination. So a comparison between rote learning, active versus passive. Imagination engages active mental processes, where rote learning is passive. Understanding versus memorization. Imagination fosters understanding, connecting concepts, while rote learning focuses on memorization, isolated facts. Let me underscore that for just a minute. Isolated facts. So, if you take a few minutes and just think on the world outwardly, you can find plenty examples of where other people will discard your own point of view because they have isolated and memorized certain facts as truth to them in their own reality. And they are blinded to the fact that their point of view is imposing onto your state of being. Think about that for just a minute. That is really deep once you start to understand the multiverse effect of point of view. And imagination is very powerful. And when we don't tend to our own garden and we don't understand how our imagination is working, what's driving our imagination, what suggestions are being put into our imagination, and are we giving emotional growth to things that do not serve purpose in our life? So the imagination is many things to me. The imagination is the eye, the third eye in the center. The imagination is intuition. The imagination is the all-seeing eye. The eye imagines a nation. So from your point of view, you are the one. There is nobody else in your point of view. And that is your blind spot, because your point of view is directly attached to your emotions, your energy, which is you. And I won't go into energy works and stuff like that here, but it is all connected. And when we don't pay attention to what we are imagining, then our imagination can become really active and it can start to run away from us, literally. So that is a little bit off topic from education and learning, but I think it's important to point out the major role that the imagination plays in this. And being able to be aware of your own imagination and what you are imagining in the moment and being present is really important. Is something that takes time to foster. It takes a lot of practice. But once you are able to focus on what you are imagining, and think about this, your imagination, if you break down the word imagination, the word image is in imagination. So memory learning or photographic memory is basically your imagination, and your subconscious sees all. Your subconscious is your imagination in many senses. So if you are able to reflect on yourself, there's a lot of stuff that you miss every single day that your imagination or subconscious still grabs. So unlocking that deeper connection within yourself is something that is totally possible, but is also something that's not really highly taught in like public education. It's just not something that is at the forefront, and it should be, honestly, because if we're not able to learn how to critically think, if we're not able to learn what to do with the information we are being given, how do we assimilate the information? How do we act from the information? And what information do I even need to retain or not retain? But the education system says I must learn this and repeat this the same way in order to get a piece of paper that says that I learned to memorize and repeat through repetition. So the critical thinking has gone out the window because we have divided ourselves into you are either analytical or logical, or you are creative, and you don't know how to manage your emotions. That's like a divide in education, really, and I think it's on purpose. I think we all know it's on purpose. But here we are. I'm stepping out on a limb making videos like this because I find it important to me, and this has been a learning process for the past year. I don't know how many people are coming back and listening to my content, but I have definitely been on a journey for the past year, and there's been many topics that I've gone and done deep dives into. I love learning, but growing up, my point of view was I was labeled LD, and it's not for pity for me to bring it up, but I just learn different. I always have. I have a different way of learning, and I did not fit into the curriculum. And, most people, I feel like my point of view or my understanding of how some people saw me was I was just dumb. I was naive. I was not smart. So that's just a image, right? That's in your imagination. And once you understand that you can just be still and let those ripples in that pond, or those ripples creating distortion in the image of the reflection, calm down and allow that image to be still so it can be seen in full clarity. You are not stupid. You are not naive because you learn different, or you think different, or how you express yourself is different. You are not naive. You're not stupid. In fact, you just simply learn different. And I want to really get into patterns for just a minute, because there are many ways that you can apply patterns. And this is the other part of learning on a much larger scale than just simply memorizing, because patterns are like templates. And once you can learn certain patterns, you can apply that as a universal template across other things. And through my writing, I have incorporated the whole tree of life idea into my writing because that fits so well and is so well known with the as above, so below. But the root system of a tree truly is a good example of this. But the concept of patterns and templates is very simple because let's look at human nature for just a minute. So we all have habits that we form, and those habits can become patterns in our own life. So once we learn what our patterns are, we can predict, if we do not change, what the future is going to be. So patterns work both ways. If you have a history of a certain pattern and you do not change, then you can predict with 100% accuracy that moving forward with no change, this is going to be the outcome. But once you become aware of this, you can change it. But just as human nature has patterns, we have patterns in Mother Nature. We have the different seasons. We have a rainy season. We have a hot season. We have a cold. So there's patterns everywhere. The birds, they migrate at a certain time. There's always different patterns working simultaneously, synchronistically, all around us, all the time, nonstop. And many times we don't even notice these things. They just blend in because they are patterns. I think, I'm imagining like an example of somebody almost stepping on a snake because it blended in so well because of its patterns. But I also think, why does a zebra have stripes in the middle of a desert? It would make me think that he would be easily spotted. So there's definitely plenty of examples of patterns. And once you learn how to take these patterns and overlay them like a kaleidoscope, then you can have multi layers of information compressed. And there's no way that the mouth can move fast enough to describe the mental image that we have in our mind. Think about that for a minute. If you close your eyes and imagine that same scenery with the beach or the sun giving a warm glow on your face, it's amazing that that's inside of your brain, in your imagination, but it's so expansive you can imagine the sun within inside of you. Think about that. So our imagination, we are able to see this mental image in our mind's eye, but there is no way you could put this into enough words to describe in full detail what that scene looks like in your imagination. And this is where you really break free from the whole concept of repetition learning. Because if you can learn the pattern, then you've got the whole book, right? So once you start to interpret these patterns, once you start to internalize these patterns, then externally you see them differently. So if you look at your own past and you are going through some kind of journey of trying to identify different patterns within your own past that you want to change, you want to adjust, eliminate, get rid of, or do more of, then you would identify these traits and then write about it, write your goals, and then write affirmations or begin to make that change on day one. So from that point, you have already begun to change that pattern. And that is how you make changes from the inside out. Early on in my practicing of meditation, I would often ask myself a specific question with the intention to know the answer, regardless if I liked it or not. I just wanted to know the answer. And I would have these vivid mental images that would happen. And it was almost like once I paid attention or observe the image, it would go away. And it was almost like a dissipating image that I could not quite fully see at first. But as time went on, the mind and body connection was something that I really had to foster to really release all the tension in my body. And that was the part about sitting still and getting so still that I was literally just paying full attention to my body. From my toes to my head, to my fingers, and everything in between is a complete body check of where is tension in my body? Where am I tense? And what am I having to mentally tell myself to relax? I need to relax my leg. My leg is tense. And you just go through this step by step of getting comfortable and getting to the point where you feel detached from your body. In other words, you at that point are able to have these internal dialogues without the physical reaction of the body, in other words. So it is the art of detachment, detaching from the emotional aspect of some of these things, right? Because certain memories, and this is like going real deep into like hypnosis for a minute, and really that is the same state of being, is the hypnotic state of being, and that's so funny that that name is, for me, has had a lot of symbolism in my life because of a stage name. So that trance-like ability takes practice, and you can go to therapists and go through these type sessions, but you can also learn at home in your own comfort to find some peace and quiet and just learn how to mentally tell your body to relax. And the more you are able to do this and keep some paper nearby, and right before and then right after you finish, I don't know, set a timer. That's what I do. I usually set a timer, and once I wake up from my little dreamlike state, if you want to call it, my little hypnotic state, then I will begin to write. And something else that I actually do with visualization and journaling is I also make my own affirmations that are personal, that I do for myself, that I listen to. But I also I use different color pens. So when I am writing, if I ask a question on paper that I intend to know the answer internally, I will use one specific color. And then I will write in a different color what the answer is. So that is also a tool for distinguishing the inner and outer voice, and also helping to bring it in alignment. When we feel like there are things internally that we can't express outwardly, sometimes it is easier for us to write it out or text it or email it versus verbally speaking. So if you think about it, you have your verbal spoken word, which is something that we often keep to ourselves, but we have what we write by our hands, or text or type by our hands, is another form of language. And that language is often more out of alignment with our true state of being than the verbal word, because the emotions convey very detailed information about our state of being when we are trying to relay information. And from an educational standpoint, I hope you can appreciate how deep that really is when you think about it. So, guys, the reason that I'm doing this is because for me, it's been a learning experience that I want to share, and I want people to hopefully for them to be able to learn something and pick up something along the way. And maybe it's that light bulb moment for you. Maybe there's just one thing out of all of my content that's just meant for you. And that one thing is something that changes your life. And that's, at the end of the day, that gives me purpose. And that also makes me feel like I'm giving something back. And I don't need anything in return for it. I can just create this content and post it, and I don't need anything for it. And that makes me feel good. I'm creating something, and I'm adding something to the mix, so to speak. And guys, I want to say that I'm really appreciative of you, and I'm grateful for the good and the bad comments. I'm grateful for it all. I love everybody, even if you don't feel the same. And I will see you guys down the road. This is Hypnovision Media.